we've talked about Kevin, Caleb, Dave. It only leaves us with one more topper, Rob Thomson.
I wish they actually got to a point where they were saying one more topper. That would have been cool.
Too soon. Not a great.
It still hurts.
Yeah, it does hurt. I don't know. I feel like I lowered the vibes here with that one more topper because we don't have that. Who wants to go first with that?
John, why don't you kick us off with Rob Thomson?
Sure. I think I'm a big Rob Thomson guy. I think I'll give him an A- on this season, and I think part of where your grade on Rob Thomson lands is sort of inversely related, right, to where your Dave Dombrowski grade lands, in that, how many options did Topper really have as they went rolling into the postseason? First of all, I love Thompson's approach in terms of being consistent, being level-headed. This team, they started 0-4. They were 5-10. I don't think they really got back to 500 until they were like 20-20. That could be tough, and a season can go off the rails early. We forget about what April looked like by the end of the season, but there could have been a lot of reactionary moves. There were people calling for all sorts of crazy lineup shakeups. Sit Trey Turner for a week, all the sorts of things that a steady manager just tunes out and says, "Hey, I believe in my guys. We're going to keep moving forward here with what we're doing, and eventually it's going to work out." And eventually it did over the course of 162 games. If you look at the numbers, with a certain qualifying minimum number of games, he's your winningest manager percentage-wise in Phillies history. That's above Charlie, and again, sample size. You didn't have those late Charlie years, but that's above Charlie. That's above Dallas Green. That's above everybody else. He's been winning games, and helping the team through adversity. Like two straight seasons, you missed big chunk. Bryce Harper missed big chunks of the season. I think you gotta give Topper credit for all that. And then when he got to the playoffs, that end of the postseason, he was in a tough spot based on the options he had to him. Everybody wanted the lineup shakeup. They wanted a right-handed bat that could protect Harper better. Well, you had Bohm there, and sure, you could switch him out with Castellanos, and a lot of people were making that argument, but Castellanos was in like a 1 for 20 or something along those lines.
On JT, personally.
Yeah, JT, that could have made sense. But I do think there's not a ton a manager can really do other than show belief in his guys when it comes to the lineup. And then when it comes to the pitching decisions, he got kind of stuck. It wasn't like 2022 where he had a couple guys that he felt comfortable with in those high leverage situations. He didn't have to run in 2022. He didn't have to run Orion Kerkering out there. And I think Orion has an incredibly bright future. But he started in single A this year. He was
pretty
insane
wild
last year. So, and it's like it looked, and I was a believer. I said, okay, look, he's doing well at every level. It looks like he has ice water in his veins, and I think that's what led Thompson to use him in some high leverage situations. But I look at that as more that's a reflection on Dombrowski again, not Topper. That who he has to go to is Ryan. Kimbrel had a great first half of the season. By the end of the playoffs, he was unusable. So I think a lot of the things Thompson has been getting flack for are a little bit out of his control, and the things that he can control, I think he does well. So
Jonathan in our chat here says it's difficult to know if Thompson is responsible for the bad decisions being made. We don't know how much influence from the front office and analytical department affects his on-field decisions. I can tell you this. I know for a fact that the analytics department at the Phillies has grown exponentially over the last 5 or 6 years, and they do have a heavy fingerprint on the matchups and a lot of decisions. So while he's the one pulling the trigger, yes, a lot of those decisions are made over his head. So in fairness to Rob, I think that analytics department pushes a lot of buttons internally there.
So what's your grade that you're giving Rob?
I'll hop in. Yeah, sure. It's I give him an A-. I think with the way the season started, a lot of teams that aren't quality veteran players, you could, and don't forget high paid players. So I think that the culture he's brought about ever since, taking over last year for Joe Girardi, the culture's great. And, they never think they're out of games. They have a resilience. And that's what I think the manager's biggest job is outside of, the bullpen decisions. I think the biggest things they do are making the right bullpen calls, which in the NLCS, you can blame him a little bit, I think, for Kimbrel in game 3 and 4, but not a ton else because pitching isn't what let you down in the playoffs. So I can't roast Rob for those. Your bats are what let you down. So I think the culture and never feeling as though you're out of games, even with 2 shitty starts to 2 years in a row now, they've been able to pull out of it. So I think Rob gets a lot of that, to John's point of stability and calmness. I think he has all that. And then managing bullpen, I think for the most part was pretty good this year. So, I remember the majority of my life as a Phillies fan, and it's not going to a World Series and losing in an NLCS in back-to-back years. So while it sucks and it hurts and all that right now, I don't think it's a reflection of Rob and his staff. I think for the most part, they did pretty well. So I went with an A-.
All right, Tyler, I'm going to actually let you go next because I'm interested to see.
You're going to drop the hammer last?
I'm going to drop the hammer last. I am.
Did you guys know the bleep around and find out graph?
Yeah,
the one
yeah.
that
Yes,
the more you bleep around,
that
the more you find
graph,
out.
yeah.
It's kind of similar to managers
Bleep around and find out.
where the axis is talent versus productivity, and
Sure.
the more talent you have, the more expectations on productivity arise. This team was expected to be a playoff team both seasons. The way that the Joe Girardi stuff transpired, Rob Thomson was kind of heralded as a hero because of the way that he righted the ship. And this year they had expectations of going deep in the postseason, and they did. And I know that a lot of people believe that they came up short and because of who you lost to and how you lost. But the fact remains, you went to a World Series and went to an NLCS over the last 2 seasons. Rob Thomson pulls the right strings in some capacity to me to warrant a strong grade. Now, I will say this. I think that Rob Thompson's overusage of certain guys early in the season was detrimental to regular season success, such as Matt Strahm, such as Jake Cave, who had to kind of play more than we expected him to.
Cody Clemens played
Cody
49
Clemens played
games.
a lot of games.
He was
kind of
screwed.
he was kind of working with the hand that he was dealt, and I tend to agree with Jamie and John. I know you guys were talking about the analytics department. There's the hand dips pretty heavily into the pot for the decision making for this team. I think Rob Thomson is a calming factor. I don't believe Rob Thomson is a massive difference maker in the decisions that he makes one way or the other.
Agreed.
Because I think there's only a handful of managers both directions that get that kind of leeway where you've called all the right shots or you never call the right shots. Last year, Rob Thomson called all the right shots, and this year he kind of rescinded to the mean a little bit. I think with all of that being said, there's expectations, there's talent level, there's a large payroll, and Rob Thomson has helped this team deliver to an extent to get to back-to-back NLCS, to go to a World Series. Rob Thomson gets a B+ for me this season, and I think that he was pretty good for most of the year other than certain, I'm nitpicking about bullpen decisions, other than the Craig Kimbrel decision, which I know Renee's going to harp on. I just know
it. Yeah, she's going to give him a D. Yeah, it's coming.
But overall, I think Rob Thomson was pretty good this year with the hand he was dealt. I give him a B+.
Yeah, C-Mac in the chat says, I would have gone Roger Mason over Kimbrel there.
Oh, man.
As a dagger to my 93 childhood heart. Yeah, Thank you, C-Mac.
You're all feeling that. Okay, so guys, this might be my last time on the show based off of what I'm about to say. So if moving forward, it's just Jamie, Tyler, and John, it is what it is. At least I'm going out speaking my mind. I was not nearly as positive as you guys were with Rob. I think that Rob managers, in my opinion, have a direct impact. It's kind of like parents on kids is the comparison I'll use. Like your team is a reflection of how your manager is. And I think that Rob, in his ability to stay even keel, not too high, not too low, is great at times. But I think there's times where you can see that direct reflection on the team that they need to have a little bit more. And I know earlier, way earlier, Marshall Lynch was calling me out because I'm all about wanting in the clubhouse, in the dugout, more synergy. And I do. And I think that starts at the top with Rob. This team does a great job of celebrating each other, lifting each other up, cheering for each other. We got all the cool celebration and stuff. And they do a better job of that than most teams. But if there was a stat for, the inability to crawl out of ruts, I would say the Phillies struggle with that, for starting with the main reason of the lack of synergy when things are not going well. They get quiet, the dugout gets silent, everybody has this like mopey face, and I think that starts with Rob. I don't think he has to be the rah-rah guy, but I think the conversations and the way that this team deals with the ruts has to be better because it's 2 postseasons in a row.
What is it, Renee?
I also fought him for Craig. I also fought him for the bad start to the season. This is his team. He's the manager of this team, and it's his job, whether it's managing emotions, managing how guys are playing,
I agree, Martian.
managing rotations.
The suspense is killing me.
He has to be the one to manage his team to make sure they're successful. And
drop it.
Like you mentioned, Tyler, this was a postseason team. This was a World Series team, and they underperformed this year, not just getting knocked out in the NLCS, but how they lost in those 4 games is not okay. I'm not settling, guys. I'm sorry. Everybody else can be rah-rah. The Phillies still had 2 good...
What is it?
It is a long goodbye. The Phillies had 2 good years. World Series, NLCS, they overachieved. No, they did not. I'm not settling. I'm raising the bar on Topper. And with that, my grade is...
I'm scared.
A C+.
Oh, okay. I was expecting
It's
you to
not
go
that bad.
D.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. But
It's just
honestly,
Jamie's show now.
Degrees, baby. I can acknowledge that.
I'm going off the screen. But listen, I don't think we could. It's not okay for us to continue this narrative of, I understand the drought of the playoffs that we're all stuck with. This is not the same team. Completely different management, completely different way that he's instilling confidence in guys, and they're fantastic in stretches of the season. And then there's stretches where they just are not good. And to have an NLCS performance like that, even the NLDS loss, I keep going back. It's those 5 games that stand out for me. The loss to the Braves, the 4 losses to the Diamondbacks, last year's Astros, which we're not talking about last year. It is completely frustrating to me that Topper still gives you the same responses. That's Nick. Sometimes you can't hit. So, no, absolutely not.
So when he signs his extension in a week or 2, your feelings will be...
Listen, I don't think you should fire him. I think you bring him back. I'm all for a nice 1 year. Let's bring him back. Let's see what he does next year. If there are no improvements, we're having a different conversation. But I just think to have the same woes season after season and continue with the same type of responses, you guys don't have to agree with me. The team's clubhouse and vibes are a direct reflection of Rob Thomson. And it's not great when they're not doing well. They can't only be good when things are going great and they're winning and they're smashing home runs. They have to find ways to pick themselves up when they're not. And I think it starts with Rob. So I'm going with a C+. I know you guys in the chat. Thank you for the prayers, Martian. Thank you for the statement, Eugene.
Your
Per
carrot went down
I've parted ways.
in your diamond engagement ring from MBD. So
oh no!
Just cost you 0.25 carats.
At least I'm still getting an engagement from MBDBDBF. Thank you. That's all I got, guys. That's all I got. Winning wild card series isn't that great, Barbara. The bar is just higher for me. I think that's what it is. You guys are okay. You guys don't, you're just happy because it's not the playoff drought. I'm raising the bar. I want championships, period.